Hello guys, welcome back to Day 2 of Python for Beginners tutorial. On this tutorial, you will learn how to determine object types in Python and also how to convert object types. So Python is one of the most powerful object-oriented programming language. There are many different types of objects in Python. So the most common object types in Python are strings, integers, and floats. Those are the most common types of objects in Python. So we can store different types of data in our computer through variables. So anytime you write texts, words, or characters, which is surrounded by quotations, let's say greeting. So hi there. So this is the message which is surrounded by single quote, and this message is a text, a sequence of characters. So the sequence of characters is called a string. So the type of this object is a string type. So when you print out this, you will see that hi there. So the most common numbers on the other hand is, for example, 0, -1, 1, 100, etc. So those are the most common integer numbers. So integer numbers, any numbers, including 0 or negative numbers or positive numbers. So that represents an integer type. And the floating type represents like fractional numbers. For example, the float numbers 3.14, which is a floating number that represents real numbers. And for example, -4 to 0. So this is also a floating point or a floating number that stores or represents the real number. So those are the most common types of data or objects in Python program. So what this can be represented by string in Python or any messages which can be surrounded by quotation is strings, or a sequence of characters are also strings. For example, let's say x is 1, 1. So this is what an integer type. So 11 or 1, 1 is an integer, and it prints out 1, 1. But this is not an integer. For example, if you put this in quotation, so this is not integer right now because everything surrounded by quotation is called strings or string object in Python. And for example, if you store variables like 3.14, and this could be a floating point because this represents a real number in Python. There is a fractional number after decimal, so that is the floating type, object type. So types of, for example, here this is string. Okay, so you can get Python to tell you that the type of an expression by using the built-in type function. For example, how to determine the type of object in Python. So to determine the type of objects in Python, we can use type function from Python's built-in function. So this type function can determine the type of data that is stored in variables. For example, if I want to determine this x type, let's print and determine the type of type. We pass that variable inside the type function x, and it's just determine that this type is a string. str represents a string in Python. If I change x to y, for example, y is a floating point because this is a decimal numbers, and this represents a real number. And also, for example, if I determine that greeting, I call greeting variables, and what type of data are stored in this greeting variable, that is a string as well. Let's store, for example, okay, any variable xyz, and let's store true. So what type of data this xyz variable stores? Type of this object. Okay, so this type of object is Boolean because Boolean has two values, either true or false. Let's determine this variables. That is a bool. Bool means Boolean value. So this is a Boolean type object. And we can also, for example, let's remove the quotation from the x variable values, and let's call that x into this type function, and let's see that this type of data is integer. So this is the way how you can determine the type of the data. Using the Python's built-in function, which is called type function. All right. The next is about how to cast or convert from one object type to a different object type. For example, I could have integer. So first, I determine the type of x, that is integer. And if I wanna convert this type into, for example, floating point, I can cast the type of the object into this x variable. Let's say I just cast float instead of type. So that value could be converted into decimal number, but initially it was integer. For example, let me, after cast, or let me cast x float x, okay? And let me print out after converted the object integer to float, and let me print that. So this is now 11.0. Initially was integer, and let me determine the type of this x after converted into floating point x. So that is float. So this is the way how you can convert from one type to another type. For example, if I wanna convert an integer into a string, so I can just cast str. Okay, that is string. This is a built-in function that used to cast from the current object into another object type. So you can just use the name of that type as a function and pass the variable that you want to cast or convert into another object. Okay, so if you want to convert, for example, xyz is right now true, and if you want to convert to for example, a string, I just pass x, y, z. Now it is a string. And if I want to convert it to int, for example, int, so it's just converted into int. And when you print out, for example, this x, you could see 1 because it is true. True represents 1 in integer. So if you change this to false, for example, that could be 0 because 0 is integer. But now I converted from Boolean to integer using int function. Because these are the way how you can convert from one type to another type, that is object casting, or converting any types of object into another object using this mechanism. So converting from strings to integers or floating point to integers, but you be careful that, for example, you couldn't convert greeting, for example, the sequence of characters into any other types. For example, let me convert greeting. So that is error, invalid literal, because these are the sequence of characters. You always convert digits, which was in string type, but you couldn't convert any sequence of characters into any other objects because that has character. So it's not possible to convert or cast into another object type. But you can convert any other digits which are in, for example, in quotation, this is string, but you can convert to integer x, for example. That's possible. So these are some of the common way how you can convert numbers to strings to numbers, floating points to integers into floating point as well. And also you can convert Boolean data type into integer and integer into Boolean. For example, if let's say we have 0 is integer right now, but you can convert to Boolean x, y, z. Okay, that's Boolean. It is converted to Boolean, but initially was integer. All right. So this is another example. So we can cast Boolean into integer or integer to Boolean. So here I want to give you an exercise to do by yourself. For example, the first exercise is, what is the data type of the result 6 divided by 2? And the second question is, what is the type of the result of 6 divided by 2? So write your answer in the comment section of this tutorial, and I will give you a response for your answer, and we will discuss more if you couldn't understand about this questions. And also you can join us on Telegram and ask your question in the Telegram groups. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and write comments below. Thanks for watching today.